What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast this week. We're your hosts, Wes and Chris. Before we jump into tonight's episode, we want to take a minute and thank each and every one of you guys that's been following along on the journey so far. It means a lot to us. We really do appreciate it. If you're checking us out on YouTube and you haven't done it yet and you would like to, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us a comment, and also turn on your notifications button. That way you can stay up to date whenever we drop new episodes. And when you're done there, if you don't mind, jump over to one of these platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or Audible, and give us a follow there. You don't get the video, but you do get the audio, and it's a chance to download an episode that you can listen to later whenever you're cutting grass, riding down the road, hanging out by the pool, whatever you're doing, and it give you a chance to share it with your friends and get them on board with the podcast. We would really appreciate that. Also, if you got a show idea or you would like to be a part of the show, shoot us an email at amongtheashes@yahoo.com. And we're also on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can shoot us a DM there as well if you prefer that. All searchable by Among the Ashes Podcast. So with all that being said, let's jump into tonight's episode with Mr. Lloyd Birl Watkins. Birl is a good friend of mine. We call him Birl. He'll get the joke. He's been a huge influence in my life for the last 25 or 30 years. Just a great friend. He's going to come on and share what life was like growing up poor and as a pastor's kid and in and out of trouble, and how nobody really gave him a chance or thought that he was going to amount to anything. But yet he's had a 25, 30 plus year career in law enforcement. He just retired, I think, 30 years from the local sheriff's department here in our county, and now he is working part-time with the DA. So he's got a pretty lucrative career. He's seen a lot, been a part of a lot, but not only that, he's also a minister. So he's going to share what life is like balancing being a law enforcement officer as well as a minister, and how that affects both, honestly. So not only that, hopefully we're going to dive into some deep subjects, maybe some things that get us in a little trouble, a little controversy, but we're going to get his perspective on it. So go grab you a drink, grab you a snack, sit back and relax, and let's jump into tonight's episode with Mr. Birl Watkins. Well, I lean towards, in that whole situation, this is going to get me blasted for all three people that listen, but in that situation, I lean to the sides of the police more than I do Mr. Floyd, just because I felt like in that scenario, he's out in public, he's not in his home, he's in public, people are watching, people are recording, just comply. Flip side, you've got the lady, I can't remember where it was, who... And it's all boiling back to mental health issues, and we don't help people in this country with mental health.
You don't want to get me started on that. Alabama is the worst state in the union, in my opinion.
There was a lady who, for some reason, she called the cops, and they showed up, and she had the water, the pot of water, and the cop shot her. That dude, that officer, to me, just wanted to shoot somebody.
And that's you know what? Then you know what he needs? It's like the guy in South Carolina. My wife watched the body cam footage where he shot this man in the back running from him. And she was like, "What do you think?" I said, "I think he should be in prison, like now. Yeah, we need to forego wasting everybody's taxpayer. He's on camera." Yeah. Same thing with this man. I know that you can throw boiling water in people's. It's an old tactic used,
but had they never entered her house, but they had no reason to enter her house, none, according to what I saw.
Well, I didn't watch it, and I'm gonna be honest with you, because I was just like, because when I saw the setup, I was just like, I know what I'm going to see, and I'm just tired of seeing it. Does that make sense?
Well, basically,
because I know somebody, and I was right. I didn't even have to watch it, and I was like, man, he killed her.
Basically, I think she called the police on somebody, and she's telling them over and over, "I'm the one that called. There's nobody here. Well, we need to come in. Well, you're not coming in. Well, we need to come in. You're not coming." And I don't know the line there. I don't know what needs to be, what police officers have to do versus what they don't have to do, or what they're just wanting to do to ensure. But she's like, and it was clear nobody else was there. They go in, she ends up allowing them to come in. She's got something on the stove. She goes to reach for it, and he's basically pulls down a weapon on her. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Put it down." And she says something about that demon or something within him, and he just plugs her. You know what I mean? Then at the end of it, the other officer is like, "We need to render aid." And he's like, "Why render aid? I shot her in the face. She's dead. She don't need aid. She don't need help." It's like, bro, regardless.
He slipped through, man.
And in my mind, he's one of the ones that the news picks up that makes all of them look bad.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
I had some officers one time. I'm at my mom's house outside of city limits shooting a firearm and changing a tire. I shoot my pistol a few times, and then I go to changing a tire. Well, a neighbor called. Officer pulls up, comes back, and parks. There's one way in, one way out. Loops around, parks, and here comes another. So they've got me blocked in. As he's getting out, he's ran my tag. I don't know if that's legal or not. I didn't say anything. And he said, "Man, have you heard any gunshots?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "You know where they came from?" "I'm just changing a tire." I said, "Yep." "Well, I heard somebody with a long gun." I said, "Nope." "You know who it was?" "Yep." "Did he do anything wrong?" I'm not trying to be a goob here, but did the person do anything wrong? Because I'm thinking, crap, am I in city limits? That's what I'm thinking.
Was that city police? I don't remember.
It was city police.
Okay, no.
And
I remember the story, though.
I said, did he do anything wrong? And they said, "Well, no, you're not not in the city limits. We're just trying to figure out who it was." And I said, "Well, it's me." And automatically the young officer grabs his, he's kind of fidgety. "Well, where's the weapon?" "Well, it's in my truck. You can get it. And it's probably got something in it, but you're welcome to unload it." "Well, have you got an ID?" I said, "For what? What do you like? I'm not in the city limits, right? So it's not illegal." "No, sir, you've done nothing wrong." "Well, then why do you need my ID?" "Well, we just have to verify who you are." I said, "Well, you just ran my tag. So you know who I am, and it says I'm clear according to whatever you can get from a tag." So I hand him my license, and he says, "Have you got a pistol permit?" I said, "Again, for what? It's not concealed, And then here comes the other officer who's a ranking officer, and he's like, "Man, just stop." And he's, "Mr. Snyder, I'm sorry. I apologize for letting it go that far. I just use this as a training situation." Now, again, I do get officer safety. I do get, you've got reports of gunfire, possibly long gun, but observing everything there, you could see that.
Yeah.
In my mind, I knew, had I not been compliant, they may have left, and I was going to get pulled over and pulled out of the car and searched and all that junk when I left, more than likely. But at the same time, thinking back on it, it's like, I was kind of a prick about it, But at the same
you
time,
definitely
it's
could
like,
have made it go a little easier, but when you feel like somebody's violating your rights,
and that's the way I felt.
asking for ID, and
it goes to run it, and it's like, what do you like? Well, why are you running my ID? Like you? Have I done anything wrong for you to run my ID?
Well, see, that's the whole thing. The probable cause, and I know that
You're good.
It gets in the weeds a lot,
Yeah.
because reasonable suspicion / probable cause, and you got to have all that. You just can't. You have to be able to, validate or be able to. I call it document. You need to be able to have something where you could present a document in court that says exactly why you did what you did, and not because you had a gut feeling, and not because you had whatever. And that's not. It's for a while in law enforcement, they were kind of getting away from that. And you did have a lot of guys that kind of thought that once they become law enforcement officers, that they had a little more authority than they actually had. Mm-hmm. So it's and it was causing friction with good people. With good law-abiding citizens. I'll just tell you, I ran a unit when I was in the sheriff's office, and it was a high speed. I'm not going to say the name of it, but it was a high-speed unit. It was a tactical unit. We didn't wear regular police clothes and wore tactical gear, thigh rigs, ARs slung, the whole thing. And we did a lot of traffic interdiction and stuff. We weren't highway interdiction for anybody out there's Watkins as a police officer, as a cop. We weren't highway interdiction, but we did a lot of that. But I'd always tell my guys, when you pull somebody over, because we're looking for bad guys and we're looking for guns. We're looking to do good. You pull a man over and you look down at his shirt and you can see that that's Paul that just left, whatever business, and he's on his way home, and he may have been going a little fast or he didn't use whatever. Treat him well. I told him treat everybody with respect, but especially a citizen. Treat him with respect and shake their hand. And I remember one of my young guys who turned out to be probably the best deputy. Probably today, I would have to say best deputy that I've ever been around. I don't think he liked the whole, why am I going to shake somebody's hand thing? But he learned it, and it turned out to be a valuable tool. But my philosophy was different than other people's. I worked a lot of areas like out here where you don't have backup, every 5 minutes. And I realized the better you were to people, if you're getting your butt whipped on the side of the road,
stop and help you. Right.
not go by and go, yeah, look, they got Watkins down. They're more likely to stop and try to render aid. And my thing was just treat people like one you'd want to be treated. Didn't always work out that way. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm sure you could fill this room up with people that would tell you that I was a first class, behind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
well, and in that whole situation, like, I won't say that either officer was disrespectful to me in any kind of way, unprofessional in any kind of way. The one younger guy was definitely a little more cocky and arrogant. And I just kept asking the question because, look, here's the deal. I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to know. You know the law, you're supposed to. So, did I do anything wrong? If I didn't do anything wrong, if I am on private property, I am shooting a weapon safely.
Unincorporated too, by the way. Right?
Right.
You were not in the city limits. Yeah.
No city limits, private property, safely down the range. I know. Just because you got a report, I get you following up on it. But when you get here and I tell you it's me, why do you need my ID? Why did you have to run my tag? Why do you need my pistol permit? And that's really what got me the most was my pistol permit. Why do I need it? Because Alabama is an open carry state.
Well, no, Wes, at the time, the average person, including law enforcement, did not know that. That was I remember you called me about that. And the average person and the average law enforcement, we had to go to a training class on open carry. And when we got there, I remember sitting with a couple of buddies of mine that way smarter than I am. And they'd already, filled me in on everything. And I was like, why are we taking this class? This is an open carry state. And they're like, well, that's why we're taking this class.
Yeah.
And you need to know the laws and what, where and all the ins and out. But I don't think that they knew that back then.
And they may not have, but the flip side of it is I told you, pull my shirt up. I have no weapon. I have a tire iron. I'll set it down. I'm changing tire. I have it's in my truck. You're welcome to reach. You're welcome to open the door or you're welcome to reach in and get it.
Yeah,
it is loaded.
You gave them all sorts
I'm giving
of
him,
permissions
yes.
to do,
I mean, they could have searched my entire vehicle had they wanted to. It is not on me. Why do I need a concealed carry permit when it is not on me? I get if I was inside the vehicle and it's concealed.
Right.
But it is not concealed on me.
Well, you didn't need one, and I'm okay with the tag running because you kind of want to know who you're dealing with when you're walking up on them. Sure. I'm okay with the tag running, but when whomever it was realized that you didn't want to give your ID, that should have ended because, like you said, at that point there really wasn't a probable cause for me to go, "Hey, man, give me your ID."
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's 1,000 other situations where they could have said, "I need your ID," and been validated, but in your situation. I do remember that, and I remember what agency it was, and I was thinking.
Well, he went straight. I mean, I ain't kidding. He went straight for his. He's fixing to call my ID in, and the other officer said, "Don't do that." And he just kind of looked at him and said, "He ain't done nothing wrong."
Yeah,
and my mother's standing there saying, "I give him permission, like he has permission to be here. Like I'm a witness to." And there again, I get it. It's officer safety. It's public safety, but it's. And there again, it sounds like I'm bagging on officers because I'm not. I'm bagging on the fact that these young men and women who come up through the ranks and they spend a career never getting instructed on the law. And I get there's probably not a lot of time for classroom time because of all the idiots out there doing stupid stuff. We just need warm bodies. You know what I mean? And then you've got every jackleg that can run a camera right now trying to exercise their rights.
Yeah, the auditors have made things really difficult. But there's a thing that's called roll call training, right? And I was a big proponent of that when I was there. And I know, and if any of my guys that work for me hear this, they'll probably roll in their eyes right now. But I thought that it was very important, even though it wasn't in depth, that we at least cover something that just happened in the 10th Circuit or something that just, so we'd kind of be up to date. And then, because you're going to have that one guy or two guys that's like, yeah, I need to know about that. So after roll call, they're like, hey, Sarge, what is that all about? And we can get into a conversation and have a little bit of training. You're right. Training is, when we call it skin up, when you're skin up and you got you got an area the size of West Jefferson Corner, Bagley, all of it, all the way to the Blount County line, all the way to Walker County line, and all the way to Forestdale that you have to cover with 4 guys. Yeah. It's extremely difficult to say, we're going to take out a few hours today, guys, and go over some training, because you're worried about one, officer safety, and you're worried about, are we going to even be able to answer citizen calls? Because, when a citizen, this is what I've learned over the years, when a citizen is having an emergency, they don't really care that you've only got 4 people working the entire western side of Jefferson County.
Take you an hour to get here.
And they don't care that you're on a bad call. Their situation in their mind at that particular time is the emergency, and I understand that, and we just have to deal with the other stuff. But yeah, you bring up a lot of valid points in law enforcement that need to be addressed. The only thing I'm worried about is I'm not sure. I don't know, man. I'm worried. And I guess it's okay for me to say this on a podcast. I'm worried about the future of law enforcement. I'm worried about who they're hiring, what they're hiring, the training and lack of training, and then just some of the decision making that goes in. And I was not a bad dude. Like, I didn't walk around with my chest poked out, but I grew up the way I grew up, and I've been hit in the face multiple times. Do you know that there's young men and women right now that are pinning on badges that has never been hit in the face?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen when they get hit in the face? What's the first thing they're going to go to? They're going to reach for that sidearm, unless they've been trained well enough to go, well, I need to just go to my taser. I need to go to my spray. I'm not even sure they use spray anymore.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, when you get hit in the face and your ears are ringing and your vision's blurred and you're tasting your own blood in your mouth, you're not thinking about grabbing a taser or going to a less than lethal. You're thinking about, this dude just hit me in the face and I've never been hit in the face. So you're pulling a 9mm or 45 on somebody and start dumping rounds. And
and that's my thing. How long is training to be a, I don't know how long the police academy for
when I went
city or whatever. How long is the sheriff's?
It's different. But when I went through in 1994, yes, that's how old I am. I went to the University of Alabama and I went 3 months.
I was in like
kindergarten,
ninth grade.
Oh, okay.
You went how long?
3 months.
3 months.
And now listen, but see, everybody's like 3 months. That's just the beginning. So when you come back, smaller departments, sometimes you come back and they hand you a map book and a set of keys and say, go save the world. In a little bit larger department, they make you ride with FTOs for another. If you're going straight on patrol, you're riding with a field training officer for another 3 months, sometimes longer if you're not getting it. And sometimes if you don't get it and you can't get it, maybe your best option is to work in the jail.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you're going to do a minimum, a point of 6 months training, which still is not going to prepare you for everything you're going to see, but you should be able to handle your stuff like the situation that you were in.
And I may have been completely wrong in my actions.
Well,
I don't know.
And I wasn't there.
But my thing is to be a lawyer, it's going to take 6-7 years.
Yes.
And I get as a law enforcement officer, you're not defending the law, or you're not doing what a lawyer does. But my question is, and there again, I know it comes back to, you can take the military too. These young men and women get 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Here's an AR.
Yeah.
Go destroy lives. You can't drink beer. You can't buy cigarettes, but go take a life.
Yeah.
And there again, I'm not knocking the military. I 100% support our military. I just feel like
Absolutely.
You're taking 18, 20-year-old people. I got a 20-year-old son down there right now that's not ready for that.
It's hard to think about it.
But he's got a buddy that's deployed right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference in my son and I consider him a son, but there's a difference, in the two. One's a man, one's learning to be a man.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking my son, but
one just got an accelerated course in manhood.
And that's my thing is should there be some sort of book learning before we just put them out on the streets, or is putting them out on the streets more important than the book learning? You know what I'm saying?
Well, you do learn a lot from, from hands-on stuff, but I'm always, and I know people get mad at me about this in law enforcement, but I'm really pro training. Training to me, the more you can the more you can learn and do, the better off you're going to be when you're in a situation. And I got an example. I think the reason that I feel that way is when I was a rookie, I was on the FTO car, and it was getting close, for me to graduate from the FTO program and get on my own in my own car. And I had a great FTO, the last one, great guy. He's still alive, great guy. But he he didn't want to do certain things. And I remember asking him specifically, because I worked in the Forestdale division, and I did have no idea where the Bessemer courthouse was at, the Bessemer jail. No idea. You'd think I'd know that, working for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. But I worked in the Birmingham division. And so I said, hey, man, show me where the jail is in Bessemer. Oh, yeah, you won't ever need that. You won't ever have to go down there. And then the second thing I asked him was, hey, man, where's the juvenile facility at? Because I need to know where that's at in case, oh, you won't have to worry about that. We don't deal with a lot of juveniles. We just let mom and daddy take them. You don't hardly have to put a juvenile in jail. So my first night, I went down to the motor pool. They chunked me keys to a 1997 Crown Vic that the man who had it before me had passed away in the car, and it kind of smelled like it.
Nice.
Yeah. Couldn't get that smell out for nothing, but I'm not being ugly. He had a terminal illness, but I only had a few thousand. I mean, I was lucky. I was a rookie with a car with 30,000 miles on it. Nothing was rattling and shaking and falling off. But first night, and I was so excited, heart pounding, man, because you don't have nobody besides you now to ask a question. Right. You're on your own. It's like flying an airplane the first time you solo. You don't have an instructor sitting there that can grab the stick for you. So things is going good my first night. It's going pretty well. Not a super duper busy night. And then right around 6 o'clock, supper time, I get a call where a juvenile female had beat the crap out of her grandpa. Now, in his defense, he took the beating because he'd been threatened that I'll call DHR if you touch me and all that. So she beat the crap out of him. I get over there. She's telling me what I'm going to do and not going to do. 14 now. And my beat partner finally shows up and goes, man, you can lock her up. I said, okay, domestic violence, man, all day long. Put her in jail. So I get her in handcuffs. She don't like that. I have to wrestle with her, get her in handcuffs, put her in the back of the car. Guess where I got to carry her? The juvenile detention facility. I don't have a clue where it's at. Guess what we didn't have back then, fellas?
MapQuest or
we didn't have
GPS.
I had what's called a map book. If y'all are not familiar with that, that's a book that has maps broke down in sections.
Yeah.
And number and letter gridded so you can find them.
Yeah.
And
probably didn't have a cell phone either, I'm sure.
No cell phone at this time. Yeah. And I rode around this place because it's on 2nd Avenue, but you can't see it. And I rode around it like 3 or 4 times. And the little girl in the back probably thought I was the biggest idiot.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is he failed me in that area, if I was to be honest with him, because I didn't get trained properly.
Yeah.
And that's a funny story, and nobody got hurt. But you see how easy it is to kind of just let something...
People get in their routines and what they're comfortable with. Yeah. And it's like, hey, I've never had to do it, so you won't either.
Yeah.
How many officers does a county particularly have, I cannot say that word, versus Birmingham City?
Well, when I first started with Jefferson County, I think we were around 600 deputies. Not anywhere near that number now.
Yeah.
It was a really great department, and like I said, multiple opportunities. Birmingham at the time, I think, had around 900 officers.
Yeah.
So we were comparable, but they were bigger.
But you're also talking about a city that has probably almost as many people in it as the entire county.
100%. And here's the thing about people that work for Birmingham. There's an old saying that if you go to work for Birmingham and you work 2 years for Birmingham, it's like working 5 years at the county.
Yeah. My buddy that just retired, like he put in 20 years and he was like, man, I was going to do 25. He said, but I just can't. He said, especially
he did
not
20,
now.
He did good.
Yeah, he said, especially not now.
Yeah.
Because he went through it with, the Black Lives Matter and the, whenever all that started.
Yeah.
The racism stuff and the riots and all that started back up. And honestly, we got it pretty mild in Birmingham.
Yes, we did.
Compared to everywhere else. There was some stuff going on, but then I'll say this, I don't care who knows, but I think Birmingham leadership is garbage. From and that's not coming from any stories I've heard from my friend who works or worked for Birmingham. It's just garbage. The city as a whole is just led terribly, and I feel like that Mayor Woodfin is more about the aesthetics of everything, and the way he looks as to having a safe city. Now, I've never felt unsafe in Birmingham. I can't speak for Chris or for you. I'd go down there today and roam around, but I was like, we were talking downstairs before you got up here, Candace, said there was a mass shooting yesterday, 22 people or something like that in friggin' Southside. And I can't tell you how many times I've roamed the streets of Southside and just hung out. Like Birmingham's my home.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it. But then whenever you look at statistics, Birmingham is up there with Memphis and some of these other dangerous cities.
Yeah. It could be a great city, by the way. I think it has potential to be a great city.
Well, there's a lot of good people, and as much as people want to scream racism and stuff like that, I don't feel like that's there down there. No. It's a small pocket on both sides of the race card as far as black and white. But people there love people.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I mean, you got, like I say, you got your troublemakers, you got your ones who want to keep stuff stirring, but the problem is we believe the news versus what we actually know and see. But at the same time, I mean, homicide rates and murder rates in Birmingham are they're pretty up there. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of it's black on black crime. And it's like, bro, you've got Woodfin, you've got it, man. You're young, you're energetic, you're a good looking guy. People want to follow you, people want to believe in you, and you're just more worried about putting a friggin' football stadium in, or putting lights up that never work to make the city.
The cost of those lights were,
when you're talking about something that, and I get the football stadium brings revenue to the city, but those lights, like, so people can see it when they drive through Birmingham and think, well, Birmingham looks nice. Well, how about making it nice?
Yeah.
How about taking your officers and investing in them and giving them the proper training they need? I mean, I don't know many officers from Birmingham. I know a few though, and I see them at lunch, and they're all super nice. I see a lot of the county guys at lunch, but they're all the same way. They're like, man, I'm just ready to get out. I'm ready to make my 20 and move on down the road. And that's unfortunate, because it's unfortunate that being an officer is not it used to be something that people were proud of.
Yeah.
And I know the officers are proud of it, but like, you looked at officers and were proud of them. And the way things are today, the way the media has made it.
I think that's what I was saying earlier. The way I feel about it is, you're right. And but when all the riots and stuff started, I didn't realize that this is going to sound funny to you, maybe. I didn't realize that we were hated so much, because all the communities that I'd been in, they loved us.
Yeah.
I mean, we got literal phone call requests from minority communities specifically asking for my unit.
Yeah.
And wanting us, please send them back in here.
Yeah.
And they loved us. Now, they were not the best some of them were not the best communities in the world. And the problem with that is, one thing that I see in law enforcement is we tend to whitewash, or we tend to, whitewash is not a good word, paint with a broad brush. And so, there's 4 or 5 dope houses in this community, and you just automatically assume that everybody in that community is, well, that's not true.
Right.
And I learned that just from experience and being in some of those really hardcore neighborhoods in the Bessemer division and stuff, taught me a lot. And the people really liked us, and they really liked and so when everybody started telling, when all this started and everybody's like, oh, the police everybody hates the police. And I'm like, what? I could walk down the middle of certain neighborhoods right now today, and people would wave at me and call because they liked us. That is, I'm afraid, is a thing of the past. I think it's a thing, and that's when I told you that I'm worried about law enforcement. I think that's what I'm worried about. We did our own version of community policing, and we tried to get out and know, and a lot of it was selfish. Like, we tried to use informants and stuff, but you can't hardly work in a neighborhood for a year in the same neighborhood and not get to develop relationship with people that are there. And actually, not for just information purposes only. I'm talking about friendships and stuff. And And so when all that first started, I was telling somebody, they're not mad at us over in Edgewater. They love us in Edgewater, because they want us back over there now. I could go right now and they would welcome us back in because, we weren't perfect. And I'm not trying to portray that. Weren't perfect at all, but we tried to do what was right. And we tried to be right by every individual that we encountered. Yeah. And as a whole, I'd say we did. And the good people of the community, they recognize that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, my buddy has said, he said, I can't tell you the people that I have arrested that have come up, and I've seen them a year later.
They thanked him?
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
You changed my life.
That's exactly what I was told. I got a young man.
I'd have been dead.
It works at UAB right now as a professor or whatever, and he said, your group, you and your group, if it wasn't for y'all, I would have been in the penitentiary.
Yeah.
And that don't mean nothing to maybe the average person, but to us, that was everything. Because that was kind of like why we were, the underlying reason that we were doing it, I mean, there was a little bit of bravado because everybody knew who we were, and we were, and a lot of guys in the sheriff's office didn't like us because we got treated special,
yeah,
or whatever. And I get it, and we did a lot of it for bravado. I mean, it was cool. Everybody go, oh, there goes the whatever boys. I'm not gonna say the name, and and they're like, oh man, you know how many people they put in jail and stuff like that, and yada yada yada. But even besides that, the underlying thing was knowing that we were actually making a difference in the community. Some of my guys that are still around might not just outward say that up front, but they felt that way too, man. Yeah. It makes the job worthwhile. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'm not sure that's. I'm just worried, man. I don't know. I just don't know. One, nobody knows how to communicate anymore. I don't know if y'all have realized that or not.
Yeah.
Because we text everything.
Yep.
And we don't have face-to-face conversations. I'm not criticizing technology. I love technology, but when I engage you on the side of the road, and you don't know how to speak to me because it bothers me. And then so we got a whole generation of law enforcement that are really good with computers, that can figure out anything on a computer. But you put them in a room with somebody, they're lost.
They're done. Yeah, they're done. And I think that's just society as a whole. I think you know what I mean. Like,
I sound like an old man now.
Well, and you know what, man? Like
they don't do it like we used to, Chris.
I feel that way. I'm 46 years old or 45 years old. I keep dating or keep aging myself by a year. I'll be 46 in January. But you see it in families. We'll text, "Hey, come down here." You know what I'm saying? I mean, now granted, we live in a huge house, but like why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because yelling doesn't work.
I guess, but I know families now that that's what husbands and wives will be sitting on opposite ends of their couches having conversation through text because they're on their phone. It's like, just freaking talk to each other.
So me and Alicia, we went to Sticks the other day. We took the kids out to eat and everything. And, the way they sit you at the grill, it was like us four on one end. And then across from us, there was I guess a husband and wife, or maybe on a date. I'm not sure. But so, we're talking, having a good time, and we keep looking over at them. And the whole time they're just sitting there just on their phones. The whole time they're on this date or whatever they're doing. I mean, the entire time. Alicia got in the car and she was like, that's so sad. Like that they couldn't even talk to each other. Like they had nothing to talk about, nothing to do.
Well, chances are they were talking to each other.
They're just texting each other.
Phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. No.
But I feel like that's a downfall of our society as a whole, and there again, I was doing the old Napoleon Dynamite. Oh, I love technology, but not as much as you say. But it is, I don't want to say it's a downfall of our society, but it's a downfall of our society.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, you don't know what to believe. You see a family on Facebook and their pictures look great and they're in their fall colors and they're having their pictures made, and you get home and you realize the wife took off her makeup. She's got a black eye, and they don't talk to one another, and they're beating their kids, or it's just like everything looks perfect on TV or on the social media. And we've lost. We're guilty of. You can't take a picture of a sunset. Man, that's a beautiful sunset. Let me take a picture. Oh, well, now I got to put a filter on it.
Got to crop it. Got to put this, add that. Yeah.
Hashtag, you know, God did this or
right,
something.
Right. God's the best artist, really, was he? Well, yeah, because he gave me the idea to add the filter to it. You know, I mean, it's crazy to me how we got there so quickly. And I say quickly, I mean, the last 20 years.
Oh,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
You know, really probably the last 10.
Sure.
Yeah, rapid.
You
Yeah.
know, it went from, you know, I tell a story of I heard this noise hunting one time, and I used to never text. You'll remember this in youth group.
Was it
I
a
didn't
Sasquatch?
text. Well, I don't know what it was, but I'm gonna tell you this: it made my blood curl, to the point I have still never went back down there. I text Sean. I don't. At that point in time, you had to pay to text, and I'm not paying for that. I just got an iPhone. I text that joker. I said, "You come get me." He didn't respond back. I walked about a half a mile up that hill out of that bottom with only my rifle. I said,
I bet it was chasing you.
I said, "You can have whatever's down there. I'll never be back down there." But my point being
your point. Sorry,
is that's how quickly we've come, and that's, I mean,
when we got
15 years.
Yeah, we got married in 2012, and I mean that was the first time we got our first smartphone. Like right after we got married, we joined and got like this Android, AT&T or something, you know, phone, and it was terrible. And Instagram and stuff was kind of kicking off, but it wasn't like it is now. It's completely different.
Back in the MySpace days.
Yeah, I mean it was for real. Yeah.
So you open the can of worms. I'm going to ask you. You believe in Sasquatch? You believe in Bigfoot?
I believe I'll tell you what I believe. I believe there's probably something that we don't know exists that could be out there. I'm one of those guys that think that there should be a breeding population, and with droids, we should have a really good picture of a 9-foot tall hairy creature that is not blurry,
that doesn't look like a stump that's blurred out, that's zoomed in. Blob squatch.
With that being said,
what have you seen?
I've seen and heard some things in the woods, but I want to tell you what really made me. I have a friend. He's older. I don't know if y'all have, besides me, I don't know if y'all have any like really older friends.
No, you're about the oldest.
There's nothing wrong with surrounding yourself with wisdom.
Well, I had an older friend. He's still a dear friend, and he's in his 80s. But in his 70s, you couldn't go hunting. I couldn't go hunting with him because I couldn't keep up with him. He would run you ragged through the woods. He was a true woodsman. He had grew up his whole life hard, so he depended on his rifle to feed his family a lot, right? But he's the kind of guy, if he tells you something, it's about the truth.
Yeah.
And so we're just sitting around I go visit him because, you know, that's how old timers do it. Y'all know visiting is. So I go by and visit him one day, and we're drinking a cup of coffee. And his grandkids are watching that Sasquatch show. I forgot. Monsters Inc. or something.
Monster Quest or something.
Where the monster goes, you know. Yeah. Okay. And so they're little bitty, right? And there's grandkids, and I'm like, hey, what are y'all watching? I'm just messing with them, you know. And they're like, we're watching Bigfoot. And I'm like, yeah, y'all better be careful. Oh, Bigfoot, you know, he might get you, blah, blah, blah. Well, about 5 minutes later, we're just sitting there drinking coffee, and my old buddy's silent. And I said, well, you stay in the woods a lot. Tell me what you think about, because I knew. I could tell. I could feel it. And he told me he was down on the Tennessee Tom Bigby. And when he goes hunting, bow hunting, he don't get out of his truck and walk 100 yards. You know what I'm saying? He goes miles into the woods. And so he had trekked back somewhere along the Tennessee Tom Bigby. And he said that things were normal hunting, and he hears something. He don't know what it is. This man was born since he was this big in the woods. Still doesn't care, because he said the woods can trick you. You know, a woodpecker can sound like a whatever.
Sure.
And
I don't know how many armadillos I thought was a buck.
Yeah.
Or squirrels.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to make it brief, and I'm making it long. He tells me that he hears something, and then he feels something. And he says, well, you know, I think that I'm just going to start easing my way on out of here, you know, because he's uncertain. Well, whatever it is, starts chunking rocks. And I don't mean, you know, rocks that me and you would chunk. I mean like rocks that are coming at a pretty high velocity and pretty big. And he said he crawled out backwards, and he'd stop every now and then and put his back up against a tree. He was a former Marine, fought in the Korean War, and had killed people. He was familiar I'm sorry, he had unalived people.
It is what it is now.
He had unalived people, and he was not afraid to unalive things. But he said he got to thinking about it. And his exact words was, I figure whatever this thing was, that I was in his territory hunting on his turf, and I figure I'm just going to let him have it. And if he'll let me out of here, I won't come back down here. He said, but now if I see fur between those crosshairs, I'm going to unalive him just like I would anything else. Well, he didn't see any fur, and the old fella is not a guy that fabricates. So then you got to figure out what it was. Was it a big time dope operation, right? And they have something, trying to just keep him out from the dope operation. You know what I mean? All that's going through my mind. But the fact of the matter is that it shook a man that had spent his entire life, I can't stress that enough, in the backwoods of everywhere. I mean, and so I got to thinking, I'm not going to look you in the eyes and tell you there's no such thing as Sasquatch, because I don't know.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I'm on that avenue. I know a guy that told me a story. He was hunting in Mount Olive, Gray Rock.
Yeah.
And this dude is that way, like in the woods, like come home from work, eat dinner, spend time with his family. Son's going down. I'm going pig hunting, or I'm going coyote hunting. Mm-hmm. Something. He loves it. By himself. Now, by himself, like alone.
That's how these old guys did it. Right. Yeah.
No problem with being in the woods at night by himself. So he's got night vision and infrared on his rifle, or vice. One of them's on here and one of them's on his rifle. I don't know which is which. But he pops this pig. And he's got a Jeep, and he's 6'2"-ish. His Jeep's about 6 inches taller than he is. And said, I popped this pig, and I watching it through my video, whatever. He said, Noah hit it. He said, so I'll go down and get it. And I leave my AR in the truck. He said, well, I got my 45, whatever, on his hip. And he said, I'm looking, I guess it is the night vision he's got on his, I don't know, either way, one or the other. Gets down, he grabs the hog, he turns around, and he says, as I turn around, I've got all these rock lights on my Jeep shining down. And he said, as I'm coming around, I can't see anything. It's like I'm scanning, and I see tree out of this eye, but I see lights out of this eye. He said it's weird because of the infrared or the night vision he's got on versus just regular naked eye seeing. But he scans, he says he gets to his Jeep, and as he pans to his Jeep, there's a figure standing at the edge of his Jeep in the back corner that's head is a good foot taller than his Jeep.
Yeah.
And he said it wasn't big, but it was big. Like, it's at least 7 foot, but shoulders weren't super wide, but skinny. And he said, I'm looking. And he said, I look with my naked eye, and I look back, and he said, because I can't see it with my naked eye because there's so much light coming in. He said, so I grab my pistol, and I swing, and I turn, and it's gone. And he said, man, a couple things went through my mind. Number one, crackheads, because of where they're at. He said, number two, my mind's playing tricks on me, whatever. But whatever he's looking through gives off a heat signature. He said, I get that hog, and I get to the back of my Jeep, and I look down where it was standing, and I see 2 footprints that are heat signatures. Standing, facing the direction he would have been.
So he saw something. He just don't know.
He doesn't know what it was. Fast forward a couple years, I work with a guy that hunts used to hunt at Gray Rock. He's sitting there, and this is 10 miles from here, 15 maybe. Yeah. He's hunting, and he said for a good hour and a half, he has ranged, and guy's in a wheelchair, and he's got this freaking awesome track chair. I'm chasing rabbits, but man, he can go anywhere. But he's up in this shooting house, and he said he's ranged everything, and he ranges this rock. And he says, okay, I know my shot from here is 75 yards or whatever. So he sees a deer come through, and he ranges that deer, and that deer is just in front of that rock, but that rock is now at like 100 yards. And he's like, what the crap? So another 30 minutes goes by, he's looking again, and he ranges, and it's 120 yards. And all of a sudden it stands up and walks off. And he said at that point, my chair would not go fast enough.
He couldn't get out.
He said, I couldn't get it in gear, Wesley. I couldn't get out of there. And he took a shot at it. Says he hit it. Now, there again, he could be lying. I mean, straight up could be lying, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know how he and I got on this topic, but we got to talking about it, and I said, yeah, I know a guy who says he's seen something, blah blah blah, and he said, well, I did, and it was at Grey Rock. I said, oh crap,
It's pretty coincidental there that they saw it at the
same place. And I don't know the area. I don't know how big it is up there. I've never been there, but I do know there's a lot of hogs over there.
Yeah, big time.
But I've heard a lot of strange things. But I asked that question because number one, I'm intrigued by that stuff.
Yeah.
But I go down the road. Chris hates it. I go down the road of I think there could be Bigfoot, but I don't think that there are all these other. I think these other creatures are spiritual.
Yeah, like the dog man and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's all just spiritual things.
Well, I do too. It's like the Sipsy creature. Are you familiar with the Sipsy creature?
Yes.
Well, funny thing about the Sipsy creature.
And that's where I was hunting when I heard that noise. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the Sipsy creature. Funny thing is the lady that told me about it, I know we're not going to call names, but y'all all know her, and she taught at school. She's very smart. She very much knows about the Indian, how the Indians operated in our area back in the time. Anyway, I was talking to her one night, and I had this dream. It was a crazy dream, but I was hunting on my property over in Coon Creek, is what we call it, in between Empire and Sipsy.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was in my dream. I was in a tree stand. That's common, and I'm bow hunting, which was common at the time, and I'm. Of course, I don't know how y'all bow hunt, but I stayed knocked up. And that sounds funny because they're like, you stay knocked up. But I don't. Yeah, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, I do.
But anyway, and so I'm sitting there and I see some movement out of the corner of my eye in the dream. The dream is very vivid. And I look down, I see a black creature coming out. And I go ahead and, cinch up, got my release getting, I'm fixing to, see what, what's what. And I notice it's black. And then I notice it's kind of big, not huge, but kind of big. It kind of looks like a Black Panther. But it kind of looks like a bear. And I'm like, what the heck? And I'm looking at this thing from the tree stand in my dream. And I'm telling this lady this story. I have no idea, y'all. I didn't know there was such a thing as a Sipsy creature. And I said, the thing looks up at me and speaks to me in Cherokee. And her mouth goes down to here. And she said, what did you do? I said, I spoke back to it in Cherokee. And she said, and I said, and it turned around and went about its business, and I woke up. She went nuts. That was the Sipsy creature. And she tells me the description of the Sipsy creature, and it was the creature in my dream. Now, I don't know what that's about.
Right.
I can't tell you, but that it freaked her out so bad that, you just had to be there. And then Lauren, my daughter, after that, I could just look at my daughter and go, Sipsy creature. Yeah. And she would freak out. Yeah. But that was a wild thing, man.
So I lean on the side. And like I said, I think there could be, I lean more towards Sasquatch possibly being a physical creature. But I think that the enemy, I think one of two things that, Noah, Genesis 6 story.
Yeah. Nephilim, you think it might be?
Nephilim, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be. I think the veil's thinning and these creatures are coming across. And we have sensationalized it to the point to where it's become the norm, and they're taking on what we're putting out, is what I think. But anyway, Hollywood, whole 9 yards, I can go there. And I know this isn't what that's about, but I just wondered. Craziest story as an officer. I know you told me, didn't you tell me one time about being in the county jail and being by yourself, and you weren't by yourself?
Yeah. Now, they were, spiritually speaking, in the county jail, to see what you would call an average or a believer might call a demon was common. Mm-hmm. And I guess you can kind of understand that with some of the people that's come through there.
So give us one spiritual and non-spiritual.
I was working on, I think it was the 8th floor, might have been 7th floor, doesn't matter. And I was going around doing a cell check. They bought these little wands because we had to go around and we had to touched and it beeped and it logged when we do cell checks, because you had a bunch of deputies at night that slept all night, right? And they'd wake up with people swinging.
Right.
So, you know, you had to get up and do your cell checks. But anyway, I was going around and do cell checks, and I caught some movement out of the corner of my eye in D block, Delta block, on the left-hand side. And up in the corner, and it was a black figure, object, or whatever. And I saw it, and I know that I saw it. And I just happened to, because it just kind of disappeared. Well, I just kind of stepped out of the block and looked into C block, which it corners up again, and it was on that side. And then I was like, oh, this ain't cool, you know, because this thing is not even trying to.
Not even trying to hide.
Yeah, no. And you could get that feeling, you know, and you'll know that it's very demonic. And I had an old sergeant, and I think he's already passed on, but he would call me on night shift sometimes, and now this guy was Catholic, okay? And it was funny to hear him say this, but he would, every time he'd call me on night shift and he'd go, "Hey buddy, are you prayed up?" And I go, "Am I prayed up? What do you know about being prayed up?" You know, and I would just kind of, I thought we'd just throw barbs at each other. And he'd say, "Get down here on this floor, there's a demon down here." And I was with him several times when a human being was
manifesting
and it was scary. But I did learn that as scary as they are when they manifest, they are not in control. They're not in charge. If you're a blood-bought believer in Jesus Christ, you are
100%.
And it may take a little bit of courage, to say whatever, but you're in control. So I've seen those kind of, you know, spiritual stories, and I did freak some inmates out. I was going to do a cell check one time.
This is the one I'm remembering.
Was doing an evening shift, and of course this is, you know, this was just me being me. But anyway, I was doing a cell check, and one of the inmates was like, "Man, what would you do if we drug you down behind these stairs and, you know, unalived you?" And I was like, "Man, you ain't gonna touch me. Ain't you seen these two guys standing beside me?" And he was like, "What?" So, "You don't see these two big old boys standing beside me?" And the guy was like looking on either side of me. It was kind of humorous. He goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "These two angels are with me. Go ahead, man. Put your hands on me."
Yeah.
And the guy just backed away, like in sheer terror on his face, because he believed what I was saying. And I was kind of glad that he did.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to have to go down there and be unalived underneath the stairs at county jail.
So that being said, somewhere along your career path, you gave your heart to Christ and you accepted the call to ministry. You became a minister.
Yes.
So how did that come into
That was
play?
hard. That I just preached a deputy's funeral that came to my very first sermon. It was the hardest thing I've done.
Yeah.
Preach his funeral. But I will never forget it because God had called me to preach. And I say very first sermon. That's not the actual truth, but it was the very first where somebody asked me that I want to preach, like ahead of time. I had a guy showed up at a church that I didn't know. Just went to a church, and the guy goes, "Hey, who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, my name's Watkins." He goes, "Well, good, you're preaching tonight." And that's when I was struggling with the whole call. It's a whole different story. Put me on the spot, and I preached. But this time it was Andy Wilson.
Yeah.
Andy called me and said, "Hey, will you preach Wednesday night?" And I was like, you know. So, yeah, I went, and my wife, you know, being my wife, she called 6 or 7 deputies. Now, these deputies that she called were my friends, but they were not what we'd call church-going fellas. So I'm nervous as I can already be just from the actual having to preach, you know, in front of, how many was Dilworth running back then on Wednesday nights? Probably 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably 100 folks. So.
Yeah. And then I look, and there sits 6 of my coworkers that are, let's just say they're tough guys. Let me just say it like that. Okay. And I said to my wife, "What are they doing here?" And she goes, "Oh, I invited them."
Thanks.
I said, "Do me a favor." I did. I said, "Don't ever do that again."
Yeah.
So I got up and I preached, man. And, you know, I'm not bragging to you.
Sure.
But I got up to preach, and I preached a great sermon, probably 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was all. That was all I had, man. I gave it all, and it was like I'm thinking I'm preaching 30 minutes, and it's like 5 7.
Yeah.
I'm just. But the cool thing about it is that I said, because I didn't know what else to say. I was like, if anybody needs to give their heart to Jesus, or anybody needs to have a touch from God, the altars are open, and every one of them hit the altar, man.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you argue with that?
Right.
And so I was like, oh my, I am really called to do this. And I didn't want to, Wes.
Sure.
I was raised by a preacher.
Sure.
I'd seen all of the negative side, the stuff that maybe other people don't see, the political side, the ridicule sometimes that some people take in ministry.
If you've never worked in the church, or you didn't grow up in the house of a preacher, the church, not the church as in we're the church, we're Jesus's church, but the church is a vicious place.
Can be.
Yes.
Somebody keeps texting me. Yeah, it can be. Just can be awful to a person.
You know, that's my seat. I've sat here for 30
years.
You know what I mean? Or, well, I didn't like that sermon. Well, maybe you should have listened to it. You know what I mean? But like, church people can be very critical.
Oh yeah.
And very hurtful, But
church, I heard a saying, I'm not trying to cut you off, but they say church hurts the worst hurt.
It sucks.
I could say that.
It sucks. I promise you. It sucks. It hurts bad.
And even if you're trying to do things right, I look back at my time at a church that you're familiar with, and I look back on it, and there's some bad things that happened, and I look back at what I did, and I realize a lot of mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
And how do you fix that?
That's
how do you go back and say, wow, at this particular junction, I was wrong on that. What was I thinking?
That's been my thing.
Right?
Yeah. That's been my thing with my whole scenario is I want to blame the situation on one person, but it took two.
Yeah,
it's just as much my fault, and it took a long time for me to get over that. Still not completely over it, but I think what I'm not over now is more of how foolish and stupid I was about things.
I think that's what self-examination is
Had
really
I done
good.
things differently.
Yeah, that's how I look at it.
If I had done things differently and it had ended, then I could hold my head up. But I can't hold my head up about it. And then I can't hold my head up the fact that I pissed and moaned about it. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my hurt's my hurt. Everybody's is their own. But, church hurt. It sucks. But you got to look at it from both sides. What'd you do to cause it?
Yeah.
And then if you didn't do anything to cause it, how do you move past there, And I think that's just a life lesson in general.
It's definitely different if you're somebody that works in ministry versus somebody who just comes in on Sundays, sits down, and then leaves. Yeah. It's way different.
I had somebody ask me one time whenever I'd stepped away from the church, and I was working with them, what's it feel like to work a real job? I said, man, this is easy.
I was going to say that's kind of a silly question.
Because, I've got 18, 20-hour days a lot of days where I left the office. I was only in the office for about 4, but my phone rang till about midnight, 1 o'clock. Or I'm on vacation, and somebody's having an issue with their kid, and they want me to talk to them and be their parent. And it's like, I'm not their parent. And my wife's like, hang up the phone. You're on vacation. You know? So, like, that job never ends, and people get very critical. They forget that ministers are humans.
Yeah. 24/7 job.
It is rarely a 20. And in law enforcement, in our policy procedure manual, they say you're a deputy sheriff 24/7. And I'm thinking, while that's true, you still get a break, right? Most of the time, as a minister, you may not.
No, you don't.
Because you just don't know what's going to happen
at any point in time. Somebody dies, somebody's sick.
Yeah, and if you don't go see them, and I mean, like, I remember working like a double shift and being exhausted, and somebody's family member was in the hospital with an ingrown toenail or something, and I didn't go see him, and I was the worst pastor that ever, not to mention I had just worked a double, and I needed a little thing called sleep. So it was pretty difficult. I learned a lot, and I think I've grown. I'm hoping that I've grown, and if God sees fit to for me to take another congregation, then I think I'll be a lot better. And I know you already know this. I'm not one of those guys that goes down to the state office every week and says, give me a church. I just don't think it works. I'd rather God be in complete control and, and them call me and say, hey man, would you, go?
I'm the same.
Yeah. Well, and I just hope that I've learned and I'm a better human being now and a better pastor, because I don't think I was a pastor when I was a pastor of the church. I don't think I was a good pastor looking back, because I was focused on some good pastor things, but I was too focused on some things and not focused on enough on others.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the balance, I didn't. And so I dropped the ball. So what I'm trying to say.
That's why I thank God that He's led us down this road, or led me down this road, is because I grumble and complain about never getting to preach, and God knows I like to talk. But at the same time, if somebody leaves me a bad comment and they don't like, oh well, I can turn the comments off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not having to listen to that. I'm about to beat my kids for slamming doors. But I'm not having to take that bad comment and then go preach a sermon that hopefully changes somebody's lives, knowing that I just got hammered 5 minutes before.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Because if one of the three people that's listening, if they go to a church or whatever, they need to realize the time that you hit your pastor up, don't do it before he's about to take the pulpit. And I'm going to be honest with you, don't do it after. Give him a little bit of a break. Can I talk to you later? Yeah, can I talk to you later? Because the vulnerable, honestly, I can't even say it. You're very vulnerable at that time going up, because you're focused, because you're trying to change somebody's life or heart, and now you got somebody telling you that you're running the air too low, or the pews are, the carpet needs to be changed, or the piano was there last week. And it's just chill on that. And because in the big scheme of things, it's really non-essential. It is trivial.
I know a guy that got blasted because somebody's granddaughter was having oral surgery, like, I don't know, wisdom teeth cut out or something. And he did a funeral for a church member's family member that wasn't in the church, but they didn't go to church anywhere. And to my knowledge, the spouse of the person that died was not a believer. I don't know if the person that died was a believer, but either way, he agreed to do the funeral, but had also agreed to be wherever this person's grandchild was getting their teeth removed.
Yeah.
And he had agreed to that earlier, and then this person passes away and just got hammered.
Yeah.
And he just told him, he said, look, I had an opportunity, number one, to reach out to somebody within my church who pays tithes here just like you do. But beyond that, I had an opportunity to share the gospel with a loved one who was grieving. Pretty sure your granddaughter's fine. She had you,
Good.
And just, it tore him up. It upset him, and I was like, hey man, I get it, but there again, church members are people too.
They are people, and hurting people hurt people. You hear that all the time.
That's right.
Well, hey, I don't.
Yep, I know you got to go, man.
I got to go. Well, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the whole cold case thing.
Yeah, we can come back.
Well, we might do that if y'all are good with that.
Yeah,
sounds awesome,
man. Absolutely.
Yeah, I hate that I have to go, but they're blowing me up.
That's all good. It's all good. I knew we was getting close on time anyway. So, but yeah, we'll do it. If you want to come back, just let me know. We'll schedule it.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right, that'll work.
Good to be here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for doing it.
And we'll